Hey everybody, I recently sat down with eXp Realty CEO Leo Pareja. It's a very exciting time for real estate, and I want to get to what he has to say. Before we do, check out the link you see on your screen for a message from my sponsor, The Motley Fool. You can get the top 10 stocks to buy right now, and it's the best way to support this work I'm doing on YouTube. Again, that is fool.com/Frankel. Enjoy. Hey everybody, it is a unique time in the real estate industry. There's a pending settlement that could change the way that buyers and sellers transact with homes. And I'm joined by an expert guest that I'm really excited to talk to. This is Leo Pareja. He is CEO of eXp Realty. Leo, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, Matt. Thank you for having me.
So let's get right to the thing everybody wants to talk to you about. For those listeners who aren't familiar, there's the National Association of Realtors. There was a big settlement. There were allegations that they were keeping commissions, particularly buyer's agent commissions, artificially high. This is set to go into effect very soon. So are you worried about your business and your agents? How do you see this effect going on?
Yeah, so if I would had to categorize my focus over the last 6 months has been singular focus on this event. So just for context for everybody, March 15th of this year, the plaintiffs' attorneys and NAR announced the settlement that would affect the industry from a procedural standpoint quite a bit. And so, from an agent standpoint, I've just been very focused on making sure that we're operationally ready for the shift. So I can just kind of very simply explain to everybody what the shift's going to be, and then I can more directly answer your question. So starting August 17th, buyers will be required to engage in a buyer representation agreement directly with an agent that outlines, the services rendered for the fee paid prior to seeing a single home. So prior to August 17th, the traditional way of earning a commission was that there was a split commission offered on the MLS via the listing agent. So that ceases to exist. It's starting to come out of a lot of MLSs as soon as July and August. And so where consumers will feel the experience different is that there will be a presentation and negotiation just like you would have when you were hiring a listing agent to represent you. And by the way, that commission could still be requested to be paid by the seller through a concession. But there's going to be a process up front with paperwork and definitions of roles and responsibilities that was typically not the case.
Right, so the other part of the question, are you worried about how this will affect your agent? So in the short term, most other real estate experts that I've talked to, not necessarily real estate CEOs, but people who just observe the industry, believe that a big effect is that it's going to be the end of the part-time real estate agent. It's going to be really tough for part-time agents to earn money.
That's a really good question, Matt. So a couple things. One is, a very large, a significant amount of agents have had a license for a variety of reasons, whether it's like I still hold an active real estate license and I haven't sold a home in 12 years. And so then there is the folks that work for builders or developers. And so there is a percentage of folks who hold licenses for a myriad of different reasons. The distribution of production has always kind of been the Pareto's rule in successful agents versus part-time agents. And so, my guess is that the distribution of transactions will probably stay relatively the same. The high performers will continue to be the high performers. And the folks that did it at a lower scale will probably continue to do it at a lower scale. I truly believe that residential real estate, sales is a noble profession because it's infrequent, it's expensive, and it's highly complex. And so if you look at the seller statistics, sellers have had the ability to not work with an agent for decades with the amount of technology, the portals, all the tools that are available, and they still disproportionately choose representation. So my guess, based on data of how people behave, the need and want for expert representation will still be there. And so the form of payment changing, because the net effect will probably be the exact same to both buyers and sellers, I don't think will dramatically affect as some experts are predicting.
So you kind of just alluded to this in your last answer, but buyer's agents are likely to feel the biggest squeeze, at least in the short term, from the settlement. It doesn't really impact selling agent commissions at all. So Do you see more buyers trying to go it alone? Do you think that might be a short-term uptick in buyers trying to go without an
So,
agent?
yeah, so I think that's the right question to ask, Matt. So, if you look at the data as to how many hours it takes to do a buy side transaction, and NAR's got very specific data on that. Buyer side transaction representation averages between 80 to 100 hours compared to a listing side of 30 hours, right? So, the buy side's actually more complicated and more time consuming. So, what I think is going to happen is very reflective of the listing side, which is how I answered the other question, but I'll give you more data points. So Zillow puts out a seller report every year. And their last one from 2023 with 2022 numbers had something to the effect of like 36% of sellers attempted to go for sale by owner. And I'm not sure the definition of attempt, but only about 11% consummated that transaction after, either trying part of it or all of it themselves. And so that's my guess. That's what's going to happen with the buy side. So now that there is a new way of doing things, there's going to be this messy middle or this kind of re-education for both consumers and agents, and where there's probably going to be some folks that try it alone. What my guess is they're going to realize the amount of effort and complexity of doing the entire transaction by themselves, and will either consummate the transaction and go, that was a lot of work, I probably don't want to do that by myself, or they will be frustrated through not being able to secure a property. We're still in a very complicated, low inventory environment, high rate environment, yet just kind of puts a ton of pressure on the process. And having an expert guide to kind of maneuver that, I think is going to be even more valuable than in markets that are more balanced or less aggressive.
So you mentioned home inventories and mortgage rates. I want to get to that later for sure. So we kind of talked about the buyer's agent impact, things like that. What is EXP specifically doing to prepare for the changes?
Great question. It's like I said, it's been my singular obsession. So, the ruling came out on a Friday. By Monday, I actually went live to our agents, and we actually received about 53,000 concurrent viewers. And that does not by any means make me feel special that I had something unique to say. It was just the fact that most people were just thirsty for information and kind of some guidelines. So the first thing we immediately did was roll out a unique buyer representation agreement, which I'm sure you've been made aware of. And we're already on version 2. So if you understand the settlement specifically, it says that you must have this agreement signed prior to. If you look at the average agreement in real estate, it's very legalese, right? It's very thorough, very long, typically been there from years and years of iteration. And the first piece of feedback that we got from our agents and and the consumers they serve, because you got to remember in today's modern digital world, the second the settlement was announced, there was reaction from consumers in the street every single day. So we created a 1.5-page agreement that could be understood in clear English, that you didn't need a JD to understand. Because if the new rule requires you to have an agreement executed prior to showing a house, imagine being in the driveway or meeting at a Starbucks and feeling uncomfortable that you need to get a lawyer on the phone because it's a very lengthy agreement that's very onerous. Our goal was to make it consumer friendly and consumer centric because we want tools to empower our agents to render the services that they do.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I haven't bought a house in about 10 years, but I remember last time I did it, the paperwork, it seriously needed 2 manila folders because it was so much. That's really, in my mind, the part that's tough to navigate if you want to do it yourself. Anyone can go show houses, or anyone can go see a house or drive around and shop or fill out a mortgage application, but it's really just navigating the paperwork.
What I've always said to consumers, because I was a practitioner for many years, was 80-90% of the job starts once we've identified the property. I've already seen the property, and like you said, you have to purchase a sale agreement. You schedule all the inspections. You identify which experts do you need. Do you need a radon inspection? Do you need a mold inspection? Do you need a foundation inspection? Like, those are the things that I suspect consumers that go at it alone who've never done it before, maybe if you're a second or third time purchaser, you garnered enough experience, but it's especially that first time homeowner who really needs that expert representation.
And do you see the last thing about the settlement for now, and we'll move on? Do you see the settlement as a net positive or negative for agents and then for consumers?
So, yeah. So, with the settlement, we're still actively defending. So I can't really comment specifically on how we view, because it's position in the case. But I really do operate from a position of, what are the rules of engagement so we can prepare our consumers and our clients to the best thing to do for it. So, my direct feelings as to the pros and cons for the consumers actually are very closely tied to my position on the case. But I will say that, transparency is good. And so any amount of transparency that makes consumers more aware of what's going on is not a bad thing. And I think having clear understanding of all the rules of engagement, so everyone's playing with the same set of rules, is also important. So, I believe that the North American way of doing real estate is the most fluid, most transparent, most accurate form of selling real estate. And we operate in 24 countries. So I say that with a lot of personal data. And so, the fluidity of our data sets, which come from MLSs and cooperation, is what makes North American real estate unique. So I'm hoping for the best. I am very well versed in the changes, and we are operationalizing everything to support them and be able to pivot as new information comes. Because what I will say to both consumers and agents is, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know the unintended consequences of when this goes into effect, how it actually rolls out. And so I've been advising my agents to just be prepared for a messy middle. So, 2 years from now, Matt, whoever gets their license and whoever buys a house, this will be old hat, right? Like if you were to call for a referral to a friend or a family member who recently bought, they will have had the same experience as you. But come August 17th, there's going to be a transition period where what a consumer does September 1 will be different than what their friend or colleague or parent experienced even 6 months before. And so that adjustment period is going to be, I think, tough for both consumers and agents as we arrive to a new normal.